Now, of course, a lot of people don't think we're machines, but on the other hand, they do think that we are descended from the animal kingdom. A lot of people think that. Now, if that's the case, that we're some kind of that famous book from many, many years ago, which probably none of you have ever heard of, but it was very famous at one point. The Naked Ape. We are not descended from the apes. No, the apes have a very tragic story, which is very sad in the telling of it. Because at one time, the ape was a human. But that's such a sad tale. I almost feel like crying just thinking about it. Because when you look at the ape in the eye, any ape, baboon, gorilla, orangutan, monkey, there's one overwhelming feeling you get when you look in their eyes. And that is sadness. And justifiably so if you know the story. And maybe one day I will tell that tale. I think I did tell it one time on one of the videos I did. But I don't want to tell it tonight because it's just so sad. So, if we do think that we are descended from animals, we will become animals in our behavior. Think about that. And is there any evidence to suggest that that is going on today? People behaving like animals? You make the call. And of course there then is the other point of view, that we are spiritual beings. A lot of people think that. But they think that we are perfect as such. And this is an illusion. We have a long way to go before we become perfect human beings. So, that we have to then ask ourselves, if we are not merely physical chemical machines, because we actually do renew this physical chemical organism every 7 years. We do not occupy the same physical chemical body 7 years ago that we occupy today. It changes. It has a cycle. So in fact, we actually do a slow sloughing off and a renewal of the physical chemical body in the course of 7 years. And when we pass through the gate of death, we discard it entirely. So now we have to think that the fourth possibility, the fourth reality, shall we say, is we have to think that we are both cosmic beings as well as earthly beings. That's what we have to think. This is part of our developing our spiritual development. That is, what does spiritual development really mean? What it means is that we take up the work of Rudolf Steiner because he is the initiate of this age, this latter part of the fifth post-Atlantean culture otherwise known as the Anglo-Germanic. He is a sun initiate and should be looked at as such. And so when you read and study his work, what we are doing when we do that is we're taking up spiritual knowledge into our souls gradually, because this is a gradual process. You cannot be expected that the extraordinary beneficial influence upon us as human beings, both as physical chemical beings and as beings who have emotions and feelings and thinking. So it's very beneficial for our emotional health and our mental health and our spiritual health to take up these content of these lectures of his on many, many subjects. And I've mentioned some of them in the courses, and I will mention more. Because as I have said, I've studied his work for 30 years. And it has to be said, in my experience, that the beneficial effects of this take their time to make themselves manifest in our day, in my case, my day-to-day life. Because it becomes an experience. It's not a theory. It's not a theory at all. It's actually an experience, a feeling experience on many different levels that you do begin to realize as a fundamental reality that I am a cosmic being as well as an earthly being. And this is in fact what all human beings are. But you have to know that. Not theoretically, but in actual practice. Every day. And this takes time. You can't expect overnight results. Not at all. Very gradual. So you have to take your time when you study his work. And I will be going more into that as I go along here with these Mobuku Chronicles. So we've just, to finish up tonight's episode, we have just had the last election earlier this week. And I, for one, was very glad to have that thing over. And because, you know, well, I've said what I've had to say about politics many times in the past on these episodes, so I don't need to repeat all that. Because if you're new to these, you really do need to go back over every single one of these episodes. Now they're broken up into 15-minute segments because that's the limitation of my software, and also because 15 minutes is long enough to pay attention to anything. You know, it's long enough. And you can take your time and take each episode and break them up into segments. But you need to understand this strategy that I am describing to you, how to do it, and what the practicalities are. Because it's very important that you do that. And all your friends and family, if you can get your family. The families are very hard to, they're very hard to make any headway with. Because they think they already know you and that you have nothing to offer. That's a fact. And at least it's been my experience. For the most part. Yeah, my kids are coming around finally, you know, they're 27 and 30, and they're finally coming around in the last, last year or so to start eating macrobiotically and get their act together in that regard. So, you need to do that. And get my book, The End of Medicine, very, very important part of the Mobuku Chronicles, because it essentially, the Mobuku Chronicles is the sequel to The End of Medicine. And in The End of Medicine, in the bibliography, you will find the fundamental titles that I recommend, or that Steiner recommended that we start with when we start studying spiritual science. And the other thing that's happened today of some significance, our first snowfall here in Carson City. First snowfall of the season. Not much, smattering, maybe, I don't know, half an inch or so. Nevertheless, it's cold out there. 36 degrees or something. And this is where the mechanistic thinking that produced all these machines, I'm sitting here in this room, in a warm, cozy room with electric light. I got a TV, I got a desktop, I got a laptop, I got a HD video camera, I got a beautiful sound system. That's all the product of mechanistic thinking, and has been a great boon to humanity. I'm not dissing it on its own account at all. I am not. I fully appreciate it. In fact, I love these toys. My cell phone, all this stuff, my PS3 console, games, video game. I really love these things. But that kind of thinking, which is appropriate, mechanical, materialistic thinking, is very appropriate when we're dealing with the inanimate, dead world of minerals and, making stuff. And it's been a great boon, there's no question. But there's no answer there, because for one thing, what I pointed out to you tonight is in that whole mechanistic, materialistic, scientific worldview, the human being simply is not there. Because the one thing you should glean from tonight's talk, when you meditate on it and think about it and study the books, the one thing we are not is our physical, chemical body. Thank you very much.